Hi, folks. Mandy here from Walter's Wine Shop. Today, I am thrilled to be chatting with two incredible masters of wine, Melissa Saunders, who is the CEO and founder of Communal Brands, and Bree Stock, head winemaker for both Consanitos Farms and limited edition wines. And while Master of Wine may just sound like a really nice compliment, that is actually a very prestigious title within the world of wine that both of these amazing women hold. And so Melissa, I want to talk to you first a little bit about kind of what your journey was to becoming Master of Wine and what drew you to that path. Maybe you can share a little bit about kind of what that title exactly means as well for those who aren't familiar.
Ooh, okay. Well, I guess we'll start with what the title means. So the title, as you said, Master of Wine, does refer to an accreditation. It's quite old. It started in the 1950s and really is, I think, best described as an education program geared towards a truly high level of excellence that spans every aspect of the industry from, viticulture, from, where the wine starts in the vines all the way through to, the commercial considerations and the business. So to my mind, it is hands down the most comprehensive and most stringent accreditation that a wine professional can hold. That's my own words on what I believe it is. For me, the journey. Wow, the journey. It was a journey. It was quite long and arduous. There are some that just nail it right away. Hats off. For me, it really was a process of understanding how was the best way for me to approach all of the challenges that the exam and or exams and research paper present. I think it can't be underestimated that it really is a marathon type of exam. It spans it's a 4.5 day exam. It's 20 plus hours of
Wow.
testing. And then following the exam portion, which is both theory and practical in nature, there is a 10,000 word research paper that is really a PhD level endeavor. So,
Well, this is no
yeah,
joke. This is
and
no joke.
it is no joke. And depending on where you are in your life, it is for sure a full-time commitment.
Yeah,
And that doesn't necessarily mean that one has full time to dedicate to it
right.
in a true sense. So for me, I think, the journey was A, figuring out, okay, how am I going to tackle this? And then B, how am I going to find the time to do what I know needs to be done to actually see this through?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think time, even scheduling this podcast is like, the biggest blocker for me. I'm being pulled in a number of different directions. And so
Yeah.
part of the journey for me was the discipline to say, you know what? It's going to wait. This is really
Yeah.
important to me. It's going to wait. This is not something that you can wing.
Right.
So that's that. And in terms of what it ultimately came down to for me, well, I guess I really wanted it. I really wanted it. And I think that that is something that along the journey you're faced questioning yourself about, like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
There's no other word but crazy. And yeah, so I was faced with that question. I was like, actually, I really do want this. And why? Because it is a standard of excellence that I think the industry needs.
Yeah.
And I really felt like if I'm going to be in this game, I'm going to I am going to surpass this bar because it's just going to make me better at what I do, every piece to the puzzle. And I believe that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. And for both of you, how many years did it take for you to complete that entire arc?
Well, for me it was like about a decade, but
Okay.
part of it didn't need to be. I would say, 5 years would have been a more realistic timeline. But I started a business, had 2 kids, got divorced. Like my life was like, talk about an arc.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things that happened that got in the way of that level of focus that was required. But once, and kind of to what I was said earlier, I was doing it, but I didn't have that conviction like I really want this. And
Hmm.
so I was doing it. You know how you do something and you're like you're doing it and you're going through the motions, but you're
Right.
not actually dug in. So by
Yeah.
the time I dug in, it was about a 5-year thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And Bree, how about for you? How long did that journey take you to complete?
I mean, officially, I started in 2012 and I received my initials in 2016. So I was someone who did it quickly. However, I would say that it started for me back when I was in my early 20s when I had, a beverage director in Vancouver, BC, who had just started in the program. Um, and we do refer to it as the program. So
Hmm.
when people hear us talking about it, they're like, are you in AA or the FBI or because it's the program?
Yep. It's
um,
true.
so the seed was planted from my journey, back when I
Yeah.
was in my early 20s. And of course, I had, a long career in between then and when I actually began the
Right.
NW certification.
Right.
Um, and, to be honest, I had to be really honest with myself about where my gaps in knowledge were. I'd been a sommelier, I'd been a beverage director, I'd been a wine buyer for, retail, for on premise, for importing, Spanish and Portuguese wines. I'd been in distribution and sales. I was an educator, for WSET. And so I'd sort of done a lot of different things that, put me primed and on the path to have success at it. But there's still, when you get dropped into the program, you realize how intense and deep in breadth it
Yeah.
truly is. And so I had to be really honest with myself about where my gaps in knowledge were. And, I'm not a I'm not a trust fund baby or any of the things that would be nice to have in this. And I didn't want to be owned by a company to do it. So I
Yeah.
wanted to do everything on my terms. So I was, really aggressive and really tenacious with what I would do to pass it. And I began that journey in 2012 and realized very swiftly that my gaps are really in viticulture and
Mm.
winemaking, the marketing, trade, communication side. I was fine on the tasting side. I was pretty, good at and had been involved in that, really rigorous, structured tasting for many years, decades. And so that was not my concern, but my concern was the viticulture and
Yeah.
enology aspect. So I started some part-time certifications, but then ultimately said I need to be in the field working. And, I do have a lot of wanderlust, so it kind of lined up perfectly with my personality. And
Yeah.
I traveled the world doing harvest and working in vineyards and working in cellars, um, doing the endless harvest, if you will, for several years, and passed my practical in 2014 and theory in 2014. And then, of course, had to be sat down to do the research paper, which an academic I am not. Um, so that was a challenge
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
the challenges, just keep on coming, and you really figure out, what you're made of to be able to
Yeah.
your stick to itiveness for the program. Um, I would say is the biggest thing, and
Yeah.
like Melissa said, your commitment. You need to be disciplined. You need to have a commitment. We do call it the divorce course for a reason.
Melissa's like, nope.
Mhm.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I think, in our world, Chris being who he is, like we hear a lot about the Psalm track and what that means. And so I love hearing a little bit more about kind of this whole other side that I think that maybe, at least from what I've experienced, not everyone has heard of and understands. And it's amazing to hear about more. So I might have to maybe venture down that road as well. But I want to get a little bit into sustainability because I know this is something both of you are very passionate about. So, Bree, I'm going to turn to you first. Sustainability can mean a lot of different things within the world of wine. How do you personally define sustainability within this industry, and kind of how do you focus on that?
Oh, I mean, that's a big question, and it keeps evolving as well. What
Mhm.
is sustainability? I mean, it does come initially for me from an environmentalism perspective in terms of understanding, what we're doing to the land, what the inputs are, and where we can really refine those inputs. What is the damage that we're doing? I'm a believer that you should leave things better than you found them. And so for me, that's a core pillar of sustainability. Um, and ultimately, sustainability, there are varying levels. There's different disciplines, whether you're in biodynamics, organic certification, which I think, for me is, I guess, one of the baselines of sustainability is really an organic certification and not, synthetic and systemic inputs into the land. Sustainability also has to cover your business aspect and covering the health and sustainability of your business, of the wine business itself, of the community that you're in, they all need to be sustainable practices in my opinion. And so
Mhm.
I think sustainable certifications continue to evolve and develop because there are several that just look at the vineyard aspect, but now we're also starting to see some of those certifications look to, well, how do you treat your workers and where is their investment? And are
Mhm.
you offering sustainable, equitable, pay and placements in your business for them?
Yeah.
Um, and also, where Melissa becomes really involved as well in the packaging and shipping of wine, these glass bottles full of liquid being shipped around the world. Like, really, what is the sustainability of
Mhm.
that? And, how local can we really, drink and continue to be? Is that the most sustainable, you know,
Yeah.
program for, a really ethical, sustainable wine program.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I think, yeah, philosophical debate that comes into sustainability. But the
Yeah.
core pillars for me are environmental, people, and then the business aspect. You need to
Yeah.
have a sustainable, truly sustainable business.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. And you kind of touched on this already, but Melissa, you've been a really strong voice in alternative packaging. What kind of sparked your interest in going down that road, and kind of overall, do you feel the industry is heading more in that direction or having bigger conversations around that? I'm like obsessed with your brand and your boxed wines. I
Oh,
talk about them all the time. So yeah, I just would love to hear a
thank
little
you.
bit more about that.
So I love impact. And really the packaging focus stemmed from my desire to take everything that I learned and say, okay, without this piece to the puzzle, my impact can only go so far.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is, you know, we have to do everything, right? Like to Bree's point, there's a holistic aspect to sustainability that I think we really need to keep in mind. From we can look at things in a fragmented way and say, oh, okay, I'm farming this way, or this is my water use, or what have you. And without looking at like a big picture mindset, we're only um addressing pieces to the puzzle and our impact can only go so far. So it started with that, like, okay, we really need to look at everything, right?
mhm.
Um, and then within that, where are, I guess, pain points, hot issues within the different fragmented pieces. And for me, packaging was like so screaming loud from an environmental perspective that I was like, wait a second, we can't actually be having a conversation like this and not be talking about the packaging. And when
Yeah.
that started, it wasn't even part of the conversation. So it started there. And yeah, I think along with that, of course, that's a huge part of my mission, I'm also always looking at just the overall sustainability of the industry. And I think in order for that to be, a true statement, right? Like the wine industry sustaining itself. I think we always need to be challenging ourselves to be looking at the areas that maybe we're not looking at where we can do
Right.
better.
Right.
So it started there, but it never stops. And to Bree's point about community, I look at even my leadership, right? Is my style sustainable? Are my operational systems sustainable? It's endless. And I will say that putting sustainability top of mind with everything that I do in my life really becomes a guiding light
Yeah.
that helps me. And to say what you said, like how can we leave things the way we found them, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that is ultimately the goal, and it's not easy, and it's absolutely not easy when you look at just how our society is structured. The goals, I think, of our society here in the US in particular are very much rooted in convenience and profit and a lot of things that I'm not denying that these are important. They're important
Right.
pieces to the puzzle, and they do need to be viewed in the bigger picture of sustainability.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's I don't know, like it moves me to operate in that way. I think I do love wine and I love business, and that's why I'm in the wine business. I don't know if there weren't that sustainability piece, if I would still be as motivated,
Mm,
because I love a challenge. And so,
yeah.
yeah, I see it as an exciting challenge, especially like the packaging. It's interesting. It is the area with the most impact, and it is where I get the most pushback. So, just keep
Yeah.
pushing.
Yeah. And this is for either of you. What are kind of some meaningful changes you've seen producers making in terms of sustainability, and kind of where are your hopes for it to continue to go?
From my perspective, I think the biggest change that I'm seeing is just people are actually measuring it. There's
Mhm.
more programs that have, the quantifiable checklists and third party, endorsements, and being third party licensed. So people actually engaging in those certifications to
Mhm.
be measured, because you measure what matters, right? And if you don't know where your benchmark is, you don't know if you're improving or not.
Right.
So for me, that's the biggest, hurdle to getting people into sustainability, and where I think we can make the most change is by actually just starting to measure it. Um, Melissa, what about you?
I think that's an excellent point. I think like looking at concrete metrics and looking for measurable results is key. And one thing that I've noticed in my work is people that I'm working with where I have partnerships, producers, et cetera, like now that this is a core part of the conversation, they're actually coming to me with new idea. Like it is top of mind now. So kind of like what I was saying earlier, where it becomes like a mindset. I feel like what's been like the best thing is that now it is, if you're working with me, it's on your mind and you're always thinking about how could I be doing this better? And actually measuring that and taking steps to make it better. And that's what's been, I think, like terribly rewarding for me because it I think, and Bree, correct me if this hasn't been your experience, but it's really nice to talk about like green behaviors. And it's a very different thing to really put things into practice that are
Mhm.
measurable. And so for me, it's been really cool to actually see people thinking about it and then taking the steps and then sharing these examples with me. It's led to improvement across the board. Like we're raising our standards, we're getting better, and that's, all we can do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the more communication and more language we have around sustainability, and make people understand it more, and also give them ownership in being sustainable, I think people really start to take that on when they can see that they make a difference. And
Hmm.
also, if you empower them to have a conversation about sustainability efforts, no matter what scale that's at, whether you're talking a sustainability certification, whether you're talking about buying a lighter weight glass bottle or, a reusable bottle, or bag and box, the conversation that empowers people is giving them the knowledge and the language to be able to use that and share these stories. And I think one of the things that we probably all fall in love with wine for is the stories.
Hmm.
And so if we can help people tell better stories and also give those stories meaning and actually make people feel like they're contributing to change, I think that's where real sustainability and change happens.
I
Yeah,
agree.
I think that's a great point, and these are new stories, right? And I think that that's been one of the exciting challenges is that this is not necessarily like the same traditional narrative, and that's where I think it's maybe taken like obviously more education, but just like a little more time for people to I guess be open to listening because it is a it's like what? Bag and box? What? Like,
Yeah.
but I think that once, once you lay the foundation with the education, you continue to tell the story, then people start seeing in practice, oh yeah, actually like that really makes sense. I think you can actually get somewhere. And yeah, education as a foundation, I think is so important because we should be evolving and the narrative should be changing, and in order to do that we do need to be taking in new pieces of information and trying them and applying them and not just like
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think our industry is in a very exciting time. I really do. And we could belabor the challenges that we're in. It has definitely not been an easy time. I think that where there's challenges, there's huge opportunity, and I think it's actually an exciting moment if we can see it that way.
Yeah,
Agree.
I also think that, yeah, to your point is that we're learning so much. We now have so much access to, science, to data, to technology at our fingertips that the rate at what we're learning is changing rapidly. And I think because farmers and growers and importers can all, see where they can implement change in their work more swiftly. I think that's where it's really happening. And thinking about the future, I mean, we've all seen how the climate has changed and is impacting our daily lives, right?
Hmm.
And you see that most when you're on the farm, season in, season out, you see those changes and the erraticness that happens.
Yeah.
And so I think, people are really aware of, what am I leaving for my children? How can I, set better examples? How can I really engage in protecting this place and making this place better? Because ultimately, it has to come from us. It's not coming from the leadership,
Yeah.
you know. So we need to be the change that we want to see in the world.
Yeah.
Well said.
Beautifully said. Moving on a little bit from sustainability, even though I think we could all talk about it all day, is for kind of both of you, your whoever would like to take this question, but the wine world has historically been pretty male dominated. What has your experience as women in wine been? What has that experience been like for you? And what do you think that perspective brings to your work within wine?
Mm.
You're like, how do
Hmm.
I answer this appropriately?
Well, gosh. I mean, I guess sort of like along the lines of what I was saying earlier, like yes, it's been historically a male dominated industry, and we're not in such a great place right now. So I look at this as a real opportunity. Like, I think, um, I think it's time for some more prominent feminine leadership in our industry. Like, I mean, if there wasn't a time, I mean, it does kind of
Mhm.
feel like now,
Yep.
um, they've had their turn. I mean, yeah, that's kind of how it's been. And I think it's really, really interesting. For myself, um, I guess it's unconsciously been a little daunting. And I say unconsciously because I just kind of get on with my thing and I like just like head down, do it. I try not to get like too wrapped up in stuff. Um, and I also think that I probably did have um a little bit of an inferiority thing going on
Mm,
because like it doesn't match the way that it's supposed to look, right? Like how
mhm.
I'm doing things, how I'm leading, how I'm running my company. And cuz we're all women pretty much too in my business. And so, it's yeah, I think that there was sort of an undercurrent of like maybe feeling like I didn't really fit in. And then layer on top of that that I'm, pushing premium box wine. It's like forget about it. But I think what's cool is that yeah, like you just keep on keeping on. And I do think now it's like things aren't in such great shape. And yeah, I think maybe a new way of approaching things, a new way of leading, a new way of marketing, communicating. I think it's time. So I'm pretty excited by it. I don't know if that answers your question.
It answers a lot of great questions. And Bree, what about you? Any thoughts and kind of how being a woman in wine has kind of altered your, not even altered, but maybe shifts your perspective a little bit on how you approach the process?
Uh, that's a good question. Um, I mean, you do learn, I think, to advocate more for yourself when you're, a minority in the vineyard or cellar or,
Mhm.
market. I think being able to, understand that place, and also find, good allies. I mean, there's a lot of, men in the industry who are very supportive. There's also ones that aren't, but finding your people, like wherever it is, and there is always good people out there.
Yeah.
I think that, is key as well. And there's always people who, um, at their core are more about the love of what they're doing, the passion of what they're doing, and wanting to share that knowledge, share that experience, and be an opening. And I think there's always those people that are out there. And so I
Yeah.
think you find them in both men and women. Um, but I do notice, especially with the work that I've done with, regional organizations and different, different, companies in wine as well, is that um, I will say that it's always the women that are open to having bigger conversations, to having new ideas and actually implementing new ideas and seeing if something will stick and something will work. I think they're also the ones who probably have a little more awareness and empathy, and understanding of people's needs, and also seeing a changing environment, whether that's in the boardroom or in the cellar or in the vineyard, being able to identify that this can be done better or there's opportunity for it to be done better, and actually being the first to lean into that. Um, so it's not, I'm going to take what you said the other day, Mandy, and it's not every woman that does that, but it's always a woman.
Yeah.
It's not every woman that does that, but it's always a woman.
Yeah. Anywho, awesome. Thank you both so much. And kind of touching a little bit on something you said, Melissa, this is for both of you, but what advice would you have for young, either female winemakers or just women in wine in general, um, as they maybe start their career or are venturing into it? Like, what advice would you have for them on really anything, but like how to make an impact, in a space that is so male dominated? Kind of what advice would you have for them?
Hmm.
And this is for both of you.
Hmm. I mean, first and foremost, you have to trust yourself. So it's not, I would say, the environment isn't always so hospitable. Um, to that. And I would say, so trust yourself and then be willing to back your horse. Um, and it's okay to have it not work out. That's how you learn, and then you'll try something else. So I think that
Yeah.
there's sometimes when you feel like I'm not sure I'm going to fit in here, or if this is right for me, or what have you, because for whatever reason, that might prevent you from even trying. And I would say, if you feel strongly about this, if you're interested in this industry, if you have ideas, just go for it and don't be afraid. And it's probably not going to work out, and then that's how you'll learn and try something else. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Seriously. And I sometimes think, I'm going to say this, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but like men are just like better at messing up and failing. Like they've just
Mm.
how they seriously, like it's sort of like they just, I just feel like there's maybe not, anyway, they're better at it, and I think we could be good at that too,
Yeah.
in our own way.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think women as a whole, if we're like, we're not going to do it perfect or we're not going to be the best at it, then we don't want to do it. I can speak to my own experience in that. And I think there is beauty in trial and error. And I can imagine for both of you, when you started your career, where you're at right now wasn't maybe even on the table. Maybe it was, but you kind of built and forged a path through trial and error and I'm sure some failings and that got you both to where you are today. So I think there's absolute beauty in kind of figuring that whole path out.
Yeah.
And to your point about the perfectionism, and I think women have, high standards, as they should. Just don't let it stop you from trying.
Mm,
Have them,
Yeah.
because that's what's going to make us better.
yeah.
And it, even if you don't hit the mark, there's next time, right? And what did you learn by not hitting the mark that's going to make what you do next even better? And the
Yeah.
ability to self-reflect like that, the ability to, just continue to put one foot in front of the other. I think that's, it's all there. We just have to be brave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that women have a lot of empathy for others when they don't hit the expectations or make
Mm,
mistakes. And I think that we rarely offer that to ourselves. I think we're much harder on ourselves. And I see this just in everyday life, whether it's someone doing a blind tasting or wanting to ask a question or even comment on a wine that I'm sharing with them. The men will just put it out there. They have no worries about thinking that we're going to think that like that was a silly thing to say or
hmm.
that's so wrong. That just doesn't even
Yeah.
cover, cross their mind,
Yeah.
and so I mean, I don't necessarily, want everyone to just be, taking the that male approach, which is, comes from a place of privilege and mostly, white privilege,
Yeah.
white male privilege,
Yeah.
to just say what they think and do what they want to do and then, ask for forgiveness later. But I think we can learn a little bit from that. And I think that we can be more accommodating and more forgiving to ourselves, and also more encouraging to let other women take the leap and to support them and if you have an idea, put it out there, and if you believe in it, then back yourself, and I think you'll be surprised that there'll be others, especially other women, who will support
Yeah.
you as well. um
Yeah.
and so I do think we just need a little more confidence in ourselves and a little less perfectionism, um for having to do it right the first time, because
Yeah.
there's a lot to be learned from failing. Yeah, hopefully you don't fail massively, but there's a
Right.
lot to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
learned
Yeah.
from,
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's sustainability as well.
yeah. Yeah, and
True
I just
that.
I find it really interesting just because a majority of wine consumers are women. And I experience this every day in our shop. Like, wine is something that women really bond over, that like they have this really beautiful kind of like slow approach to wine consumption, or not necessarily slow, but like it's really a thing that brings them together, and they have a really like deep understanding of, I feel. And so I always encourage women, like, have more opinions on it. Like, you're the ones who are really driving this market and who are, you know, bringing people together over a bottle of wine like that. From what I have seen in both working in wine tasting room and now a wine bar and bottle shop, like they're really the ones driving the way forward. So yeah, like have the opinions. And um I find often, like when I started in this role, I've been here about a year now, I almost gave myself permission to like come in with that confidence that I hadn't had before, because it was a new venture, and I was kind of just like, I'm just gonna ask for forgiveness later, and have thoughts and be creative and share what I think, and it does lead you in a better direction, instead of kind of doubting yourself, or that you don't have enough experience to, bring an idea to the table. And I kind of want to like bring that into more of my life now, of just kind of walking into the room like, yeah, it's fine. I know I got it, and I think especially within this world, like women hold such power over what is happening in the market, that they should they should say more.
You raise an excellent point, I think, because if we look at the state of the industry, right, we could connect a dot to, a very large base of women consumers that could potentially be even larger if, as an industry at a high level, we
Mhm.
were really
Mhm.
paying more attention to that. And I don't know, like, you know, I tend to think, maybe more women leaders coming forward in the industry might attract in more women consumers.
Mhm.
It's just an idea, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think if that doesn't give us confidence, I don't know what does. And to your
Mhm.
point
Yeah.
about, not being confident that have had enough experiences, this or that, experiences lead to experience, right? So I
Yep.
think if again, if there was ever a time, I think it's now. And we can look at the industry holistically and say, like there was a time when it was more or at least heavier on the male dominant consumption, right? We could, and I'm not saying that that's not still, a segment of the market, but I think we'll all agree that it's a segment of the market that has been shrinking, right? There's a generational shift
Mhm.
occurring.
Mhm.
And with that, more young people and more women. And, they're really looking at a different type of, I think, just brand leadership, ethos. And
Yep.
so we should
Completely.
have confidence to just get out there and, go get it, because it's
Yeah.
right there. And it's great
Yeah.
because it feels more community than transactional, in my opinion, and that's what I
Mhm.
love about it.
Mhm.
Love, love, love. More of
That's
that.
that's
That's sustainable.
exactly that's sustainable. That's exactly what I was going to say. I see things changing from, you know, even the way that wine was presented or, communicated. It's no longer as much of a status or, a trophy. It's more about meaning and community and bringing
Mhm.
people to the table. And the wines now have to have meaning as well,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's really where women drive things is they want their wine to mean something, but they also want it to bring their people together as well, and have that at the table. So I think that that's the change and the shift that we're seeing, is that this product that I'm putting on the table, I can choose any beverage. I'm choosing wine. And why am I choosing that? Because it's
Yeah.
better, because it's better for me than other malt beverages or liquor, or, this is a farmed product that has had real hands that have made it. I mean, not all wines, but the wines that Melissa and I work with,
Yeah.
they're real wines made by real people, and
Yeah.
intentional decision making behind that. And I think that's where we're seeing women really engage and
Yeah.
continue to support that ethos. It's not just, oh, it's got a gold medal, or, there's it
Right.
does and there's curiosity. The thing that I love about women is that there's empathy and curiosity, and it doesn't need to, they're curious about new wines. It doesn't need to be the same wine. And that's the beauty of wine in general as well, is that it's a living, breathing, bottled
Right.
liquid that continues to evolve in bottle. And every bottle you open is going to be different.
Yes.
Every glass you have is going to be different, because the second you open it and is in contact with
Yeah.
oxygen, or the conversation that you're having around it, the wine changes.
Yeah.
And I think that's real mindfulness and awareness. And I think that's really appealing to women as well.
I agree. I agree. Well, I could ask more
Totally.
questions, but I feel like that's a really beautiful place to end. And I'm really, really grateful for both of your time. I think you're both just like such wonderful examples of what it means to be women in this industry and incredible winemakers, and really driving conversation around some really cool topics that people care a lot about right now. And I love talking about both of your wines every day in our shop. So I'm again just really, really grateful to have both of your time and very busy schedules. So thank you
Um,
very, very much.
Oh,
Mandy,
thank you,
thank
Mandy.
you. And
You are
also
so
keep
Yeah.
welcome.
keep doing this work, because this work is important. And thank you for telling the
Amen.
stories.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course. Well, I'm gonna hit pause on recording really quickly if it will let me. Okay, well, it's not because it keeps saying I'm trying to connect. So if you all need to leave, you're welcome to, but don't know I don't know how to get reconnected here.
Oh my
So
goodness.
anywho,
Well,
thank you again very, very much. And
Guys, it was so nice to see you, Bree. Thank you, Mandy.
oh, so
Really.
great to
I
see you,
appreciate
Melissa.
it. You're so
Yeah.
welcome. Thank you
We'll be in
both.
touch. Take
Great.
care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.